Hey, babe. I hit rock bottom. For real this time. Now, it's been about a week since my last video, and a lot has happened since then, so I think the most logical thing to do is just go back to the beginning and kind of tell the story from there. And by the end, you'll understand what I mean by I hit rock bottom. So, last video I recorded was on Monday. So, not yesterday, the week before that. Sorry, not 2 days ago, but the week before that. And last video where we left off is basically me almost getting married. And something that I realized after recording that video was that I'm holding back in a way. Like I'm still sharing everything, but I'm trying to justify it, trying to explain it instead of just sharing it the way it is. Like as an example, with the whole marriage thing, I was trying to explain like, oh, it wasn't really a marriage, it was just this thing, and it was like whatever, and I was trying to justify, trying to explain it, try to downplay it, and I'm just like, no, that's not what I'm supposed to do. Because this is about sharing my experience in the moment. And in the moment, that's what felt right. So I don't need to justify it because I'm afraid that you're gonna look back at this and potentially be hurt or I don't know what. Or maybe even like other people in my life that it may hurt. Also the knowledge that even though I'm recording this for you, I know that my family and my friends are gonna watch this. So there are certain topics that sometimes I try to downplay a bit and hold back on just because I don't necessarily want to make things too awkward for certain people that are going to be watching. But at the end of the day, that is not what this is about. This is just about sharing authentically, 100% exactly what's happening. All right, so I want to get that out of the way. Also, another quick thing, just because it happened, but it wasn't really part of the story. So, you know that girl that I was supposed to go on vacation with? The one that ended up getting a job and her mother or grandmother got injured, so she had to go take care of her. Turns out she ended up unfriending me, and now I have no way of contacting her, which is weird. Because like we're really getting along and everything. It's like even though we couldn't go on the trip, everything else was great. So it's just like usually when someone unfriends you and you can't contact them, I don't know if she blocked me or not, but whatever. And it's just like I'm just like, why would she do that? When someone does that, it's because something happened and they're like, no, I never want to speak to that person again, like a relationship that ends badly. So I was just very surprised by that. But it's like, okay, whatever. It doesn't change anything. We probably never would have seen each other again. But I just wasn't expecting that. So anyway, just wanted to quickly share that. All right, so the last time we spoke was on Monday. So Tuesday morning, I meet up with the girl that I was actually going on vacation with, which was the same girl that I met in Antigua 3 weeks before that. I don't know, I lose track of time now. Anyway, the one that caused me to, at the time, hit rock bottom and have the most embarrassing experience of my entire life. And as I'm speaking, I'm realizing, you know what, I should start using names of people rather than just describing them. And obviously not last names, so just first names, so, we can keep anonymity and everything. But anyway, this girl's name is Susan. So, Tuesday morning, meet up with Susan, wait for the shuttle. In the beginning, it's a little, not necessarily awkward, it's just like it's been 3 weeks, let's say, since we saw each other last. And last time we saw each other was a very embarrassing moment for me. So, in the beginning, it was slightly embarrassing, but, we got on the shuttle. And of course, we get in, and it was the second stop, so the shuttle was mostly full already, and there was limited space, and we ended up not being able to get two seats next to each other. So I'm like, wow, that's gonna suck, spending like 7 hours in the shuttle and not being able to sit next to each other. Luckily, about half an hour in, we stopped to get gas, so I go back, ask a guy that's sitting next to Susan, hey, is it cool if we switch seats because we're together and I would like us to sit together? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So anyway, first problem solved. Now, the downside of being tall and a man is that sitting in a shuttle for 7.5 hours sucks. Because I'm tall, so obviously my knees are hitting this front seat in front of me, and there's not that much room to move around. And second of all, I'm a guy, and in general, guys are like guys are less flexible than women. So we have to move more often and change positions to stay comfortable, whereas women are more flexible, so they can be more comfortable in a lot of more uncomfortable situations than guys. So anyway, very long, uncomfortable ride for me. But eventually we make it to Smoke Champagne. By the time we check in and everything, it's around 6 p.m. And just wanted to quickly mention, I know this can be a long video, so I apologize in advance. Just there's a lot to go through, so we have to get it over with. Anyway, so we get there around 6, check in and everything. Turns out that the room I booked really wasn't that nice. Unfortunately, there were no pictures for the room, only pictures for other rooms and the hostel itself, and it looked pretty nice, given, the fact that it's in a village and everything. So I'm like, okay, the room is probably gonna be nice. Turns out it was pretty crappy. But we're like, hey, it's already booked. We don't really have another choice, so we're just gonna stay here, and that's it. Now, here's where the not so fun stuff begins. So at the end of the day, check in, relax, chill in the room for a bit, then about to go to sleep, and things start happening. Now, unfortunately, after last time, I'm like, okay, cool, it can't get any worse, so it can only get better. Unfortunately, nothing happened once again. I don't know why, for some reason, my brain was like, yeah, no, buddy, not working today. I don't know if it was because I put pressure on myself because I'm like, all right, this is my second chance. It's going to allow me to make up for that last experience, for messing that up and not being able to perform and everything. So I'm like, cool, second chance. And that was probably not the right approach because history repeated itself again. So, not new rock bottom, but same old rock bottom as before, and still very embarrassing. And not a good way to start the trip. By the way, at this point, she didn't know if she'd be able to stay the full week and come to me to Tikal with me to Tikal as well. So at that point, we're like, all right, she might just be staying 2 days. So it was one day for the shuttle on Tuesday, then Wednesday, Thursday there, and then Friday she would take the shuttle back. That was the plan, unless she could change her plans later on. So I'm like, all right, there's pretty much 2 more nights where something could happen. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let's try not to let this get in my head too much, even though it already has. And let's just try to enjoy the trip. So I'm like, all right, in that area, in the bedroom area, it's pretty much dead. Like, even if absolutely nothing happens, whatever, let's try to make the most of the rest of it. So anyway, we end up going to sleep, wake up the next morning, and go to Smoke Champagne, which is a beautiful river in the middle of the forest with like beautiful basins where you can swim and everything. There's a viewpoint at the top. There's caves you can visit. There's like a rope swing and you can do like tubing on the river and everything. It's like really, really cool place. Now, we tried to book just the entrance because there was a guided tour and whatever, or just the basic like ride there and back and the entrance fee. So we tried to book that, at least we thought we booked that, but when we get there, the guy's like, no, you booked a guide. We're like, well, we don't really want to, so we're just gonna go do our own thing and meet you back here later. And even though it's more expensive, it's like, whatever, if I have to pay for it, I'll pay for it, it's not the end of the world. Anyway, we head off, go to the viewpoint, look down, amazing view, take pictures and everything, go down, swimming, really cool. It was really an awesome day, kind of made up for the previous night's failure. And yeah, overall, really, really fun day. And then we come back at the end of the day at the hostel and everything. And that night we're pretty tired, and because of what happened last night, like we're not really in the mood, so nothing happens. We pretty much just go to sleep that night. But in my head, I'm thinking, okay, the back before I had the shockwave therapy, which was supposed to fix the issue, but turns out made it even worse for some reason. I did use certain equipment to help increase performance. And yes, I realize that this is kind of an awkward talk, but hey, it's all about sharing the experience. So there was obviously pills, which, works not 100%, but definitely makes things easier and better. The only downside of that is that it gave me pretty intense headaches, so I never really took it that often. Second thing is pretty much a ring that traps blood and helps increase things. Let's just leave it at that. So I'm like, okay, well, small village like this, like pills, definitely not an option. Plus, I don't have a prescription and I don't know how I would get one, and it's very complicated and everything. So in my head, that's not an option. So I'm like, all right, I'm sure I can't find any of those rings anywhere here, but an elastic could work. So I'm like, all right, let's find a pharmacy and try to buy like a hair elastic. Turns out I wasn't able to, so I literally went around the hostel and asked girls like, hey, does anyone have an extra hair elastic I can borrow? Obviously, I didn't explain why because that would have been super awkward. And also not borrowed, just, they could give me because I would definitely not return it after. Ah, man, I'm just thinking, it's funny because even though, I'm recording this for you, I know my parents are going to be watching this. And I'm just thinking, like, that's going to be so awkward for them. But you know what? That's it. Anyway, so I managed to get the elastic, but by then we're just like tired and not really in the mood. So we end up doing nothing that night, going to sleep. Next morning, we wake up, we're not really sure what we're going to do. Wow, it's already been 11 minutes and it's only the start of day 2. Anyway, this can be a very long video. It's going to take forever to upload, but it's okay. All right. So next day, we're not really sure what to do because we already visited Samuk Chempe. There's no point really in going again. So we're like, all right, we're just going to take it easy and relax. Maybe go for a walk somewhere, go for a swim in the pool, just chill and stuff like that. Maybe try to find a place where you can go watch the sunset. So that's pretty much the plan for the day. So we take it easy, get directions to go like climb up to a viewpoint to watch the sunset. But turns out the person who gave us the instructions gave improper instructions. So by the time we finally find the place, it's too late. It's far away. There's no way we're going to make it by sunset. And Susan doesn't really want to walk that far. So we're like, all right, fine. Let's go back to the hostel, chill, have dinner, and relax. And that's what we end up doing. And then that evening, I'm like, all right, now's the time because this might be our last night together. We already booked her return shuttle for Friday morning. So this all right, it's now or never. I have the elastic. I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's try. We try and complete failure once again. I'm just like, wow. That is just, wow. Third time with something that's supposed to help. It's still not working. I'm just like, oh my God, this is horrible. So you probably think at this point that this is my new rock bottom, right? Well, it turns out it's not. Just wait a bit. Anyway, so we're not able to complete things the way they should be completed. So once again, I feel like a complete failure. But in my head, I'm like, all right, at least it's over. She's leaving tomorrow morning. I'm never going to hear from her again. I can move on with my life. This sucks. I wish I could have fixed it or made up for it or whatever. It is what it is. Moving on. Now, later that evening, we're gonna eat dinner, and then as we're eating, she gets a text from her friend saying, oh, because she was supposed to go back for the weekend to go to Lake Atitlan and spend the weekend there with her friend. But her friend turns out she has to work, so she canceled last second. And now in my head, I'm like, all right, do I offer to let her come with me for the rest of the trip? Or do I just say nothing, let her go back, and not make things more awkward? And plus, the shuttle's already booked. So I'm like, all right, I'm just not going to say anything. If she brings it up, cool. If not, okay, that's the end of it. So I don't say anything. And after a while, she doesn't say anything either. So I'm like, all right, cool, it's dead. She just wants to go back home, forget about this, move on with her life. All good. But at some point, I think an hour later or something like that, we're talking and she brings up the subject. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And in my head, I'm like, do I want her to come with me? I'm like, sure, why not? Even though part of me, to be fair, is like, all right, if there continues to be this sex issue, it's going to be very awkward. And also, the other thing that kind of bugs me is the fact that not once has she ever offered to pay for anything. That's for me when I was like, we're going on a trip together. I'm like, oh, we're going to split expenses. Worst comes to worst, I pay for lodging and everything else, we just pay our own stuff, right? No, not a single time did she offer to pay for anything. So I end up paying for everything. And yes, I could have been like, hey, we should split this and everything. But I'm like, it's not that much money in the grand scheme of things. Yes, it doubles my budget for that period that we're together. But I'm like, hey, it's a fun experience. I've never had a couples vacation, even though we're not a couple, but it's like it's the closest I've ever been. So I'm like, all right, whatever. It's just money. It's not the end of the world. But that kind of bugs me also in the back of my head. So I'm like, should I invite her? I'm like, whatever. I'm probably going to regret not doing it. At the end of the day, we don't even know if we can change the shuttle. So whatever. You're more than welcome to come with me if you want. So we agree, okay, let's try to change the shuttle. If we can, cool. If not, then you'll just go back to the city and I'll go over there. So I go talk with the guy. He calls the agency, even though it's like 9 or maybe a little past 9 at night. He calls, he's able to cancel her shuttle, and then he calls and he's able to book an extra place on my shuttle to come to Flores and go visit the Cal. So I'm like, all right, cool. I guess we're spending a few more days together. So next morning we take the shuttle, and I thought it'd be awkward, but surprisingly during the day everything was great. It's just whenever night rolls around, that's when things got awkward. At least it did for me. All right, so once again, another full day in the shuttle, and this time, even though the distance is shorter, for some reason it took like 9 hours for us to get here. So we left early, I think around 8, got there around almost 6:30, 6 again by the time we check in and everything. Now the thing is, because I booked 2 nights in a wow, I lost the word, in a dormitory. And obviously, since, we're together, it doesn't make sense to stay in a dormitory. So I'm like, all right, I messaged them on the way there, like, hey, is it possible to upgrade it to a room? And I didn't get an answer. So by the time I show up, or actually they did message me maybe like 60 minutes before we arrived saying like, oh yeah, we can upgrade you to a room. It's going to be that much. Let us know if you want to. And I'm like, well, we're 60 minutes away. We'll just discuss it when I get there. And then when we finally arrived, they're like, oh, we already upgraded you to a room. I'm like, but I didn't confirm anything. They're like, yeah, but because we wanted to make sure we had the place reserved and you didn't get here and there was no place for you, we booked the room for 2 nights, so it's 800 quetzals. So like 65 a night, something like that, Canadian. So a little pricier than I was hoping, so I was thinking like, okay, we'll just take those 2 nights, convert it to 1 night in a room, spend it there, and then the next day I'll look to try to find like a place that's a little cheaper, that's nice and whatever. But I couldn't, so I'm like, all right, fine. We're staying there 2 nights. More expensive than I was expecting once again, and I had to pay for everything, of course. But anyway, whatever. I'm like, cool, just money. Let's enjoy it. Let's make the most of it. So the room is actually really nice. Double bed with like 3 other single beds that no one was using, so we had the whole room to ourselves. Private bathroom and everything, so it was really nice. Now, that day, or that evening during dinner, at some point she asked like, hey, have you ever tried pills? I'm like, yes, I have, but it gives me a headache, and also we need a prescription, and I don't know how I would get one. And then she's like, oh, we don't need one in Guatemala. I'm like, really? Huh. Okay, well, could be worth a try, like I've tried pretty much everything else to this point, and it's been a complete failure, so might as well make this a potential other failure. What do I have to lose? Except whatever is left of my dignity. So we're taking a walk after dinner, and we're passing by a pharmacy. So I'm like, oh, perfect timing. So go in, ask, and ironically, they had 1 left. And they're like, oh, it's only 50 milligrams rather than 100. Do you still want it? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And the funny thing is, like, in Canada, even with a discount from the health insurance, it comes to about $13.50, I think, per pill. Here, with no insurance, no prescription, nothing, it cost 28 quetzales, which is the equivalent of like $5. I'm like, wow, it's already super cheap. Cool. And I don't need a prescription. So if this works, this could be a very good option for the future. So we go back that night and try again. And finally, after 3 separate failures and complete embarrassment on every single level, it finally works. I'm like, yes, finally, after all this time. And ironically, I wasn't necessarily happy for myself. I was just happy to finally be able to give her what she deserved. Because I felt like the last 3 times my underperformance, yes, was embarrassing for me. But I just felt bad for her because like I felt like she deserved more and I wasn't able to give that to her. And I'm like, yes, finally I get to give her what she deserves. So that night was amazing. I'm like, yes, finally, everything is finally working out. So even if the rest like sucks, at least I made up for it. At least that's the way it's working in my head, you know? So that night was amazing. Everything was great. And I'm like, cool, I finally found a solution. So the next day, I go to another pharmacy that's in the city because like we're on an island here, a small island. There's only pretty a few pharmacies, and that one was out. So I'm like, all right, go to the land, get some more. And ironically enough, it's even cheaper over there because here it was 28 quetzales for one 50 milligram pill, and in the city it was 200 milligram pills for 25. So ended up being like $2 per pill rather than 13.50 in Canada for twice the dose of the first one that I got. I'm just like, okay, cool. So second night, I'm like, hey, they're 100 milligram pills, so let's just take a full one, whatever. And yeah, second night, even better than the first. Everything was great. I'm like, cool, this is definitely working. And then the third night, we found another hotel, and this is in fact this hotel that I'm recording this video in. I have to check out soon, so hopefully this video isn't like an hour long or something. Anyway, so then I'm like, well, they're like big pills that are like made to be broken in two. So since the first day a 50 milligram pill worked, let's just use half 100 milligram one. It's gonna end up being the exact same thing. So that evening, we're chilling on the roof of the hotel, you know, having drinks and enjoying the sunset and the view because we were right next to the water. And at some point, I'm like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. So I go back down to the room, go to the bathroom, and I'm like, well, it's getting pretty late. I know these pills are supposed to have an effect for like up to 4 hours, I think, something like that. So I'm like, it's 6 now. We usually go to bed pretty late, pretty early because we wake up early to do stuff. So yeah, we should be good. Let's just take it now because there's a window of like 30 to 60 minutes before it starts having an effect. So rather than having that window where we're like stuck waiting, I'm like, oh, I'll just take a nap. So take half a pill, so 50 milligrams. I'm like, it'll be fine. Everything's good. Go back up. We end up chilling there for longer than expected. And by the time we come down, it's been a few hours, maybe like 2.5 hours since I took the pill. But I'm like, it's still going to have an effect. And, you know, one thing leads to another. We start getting into it. And I realized that, you know what? The effects of the pill aren't as intense as they were the first time. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should have taken the full one, or maybe it's just because it's been a while since I've taken it, or maybe because it's been like a few days in a row and my body's kind of sore and exhausted and it's just not working as well. But it's just like, you know, we're able to, because in my head, I'm like, all right, what level of detail do I go into given who's going to watch this video? So I'm going to try to keep it PG-13. Anyway, so we're able to get into things. Unfortunately, neither of us are able to get to the end, if you catch my meaning. And that was the moment that I'm like, crap. I took a pill, I used the elastic, and I still wasn't able to perform. Like, yes, just not to satisfaction, if you will. And that was the moment I realized, like, okay, this moment right now, this is my new rock bottom. Because I did everything I could possibly do, and it didn't work. And I'm like, oh my God, this is bad. And the worst part was, in my head, because I've had this condition for a while, in my head, the way I see it is like, okay, if I can't, you know, derive satisfaction from the encounter, it's okay, as long as she does. Because it's my twisted way of making up for it, I guess. If I can't perform, at least, you know, I can make her happy. And unfortunately, she's not like that. She's like, okay, I, you know, obviously enjoy it, but I'm not satisfied if you're not satisfied also. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, but I mean, I can't be satisfied given the current situation, so might as well that one of us be satisfied rather than the other, than neither of us. But she's like, no, I don't want to be unless we both can. And like, it led to not really an argument, but just kind of like an awkward misunderstanding of her conversation, ending with very awkward lying in bed watching TV, wondering, should I offer to sleep in the other bed? And, okay, I mean, I pretty much shared my point of view. She shared hers and everything. It's like we're trying to be understanding and everything. And, everything ended up being fine. Ended up like, holding each other and watching TV and going to sleep and everything was cool. And I'm like, all right, whatever. There's still a few days left, so it's not a complete disaster. Plus, this is the absolute worst thing that's ever happened to me at this point. So it can't get any worse. Then again, that's what I said last time and it did. So you never know. Anyway, so that was the most awkward night of the entire trip. And the day after that, we ended up going to Yaksha, which was Mayan ruins. They're more deserted. They're less touristy than the other ones, so they're not as beautiful. But we were able to hear and see howler monkeys and a tarantula. And in fact, I took a picture with one on my head. You can look on Facebook or Instagram to see that. It was pretty cool. Like the ruins were fun and everything, but it's like, okay, they're ruins. I don't really care so much about that. But getting that picture with that tarantula on my head was really cool, especially since it's not like a pet tarantula. It's a random tarantula that our guide just found in a hole in the ground, and he took it and like gave it to people in their hand to take pictures and everything. And wow, apparently I reached the size limit for a video, and now it started a new video. So I have no clue how I'm going to publish this. Maybe in two parts, or maybe I'm gonna splice them together, but that would mean having to do editing, and I hate editing, so I don't know. Anyway, not your problem. So yeah, that visit at Yaksha was pretty fun, kind of made up for the awkward night of before. And yeah, pictures really cool, so we came back, had fun, and the thing is, during the day, everything was great. It's only whenever night rolled around and things had the potential to get awkward. The first two nights awkward, next two weren't. Last one super awkward. And I'm like, I don't know. Is it going to be super awkward for the rest of the trip? Is anything going to happen for the rest of the trip? I don't know. But I'm like, hey, I give up at this point. I can't control anything, so let's stop trying. And ironically, whether it's the fact that I gave up or not, somehow made things better, which I really, really was not expecting. But that same night, when we get back, it was pretty late by then, and I'm like, all right, but we come back, so we're hungry, so we go to the restaurant and everything. By the time we come back, it's like 8, 9 o'clock. I'm like, all right, the pill takes a while to take an effect. By the time we take showers and everything, like it's not worth taking it. So we'll just fall asleep tonight, and then the day after, the final day that she's here, we can try again, maybe make up one last time for all my screw ups. So that was the way it was going in my head. But at some point, we start kissing, and one thing leads to another, and I'm just like, crap, I should have taken the pill. But I'm like, now there's no time, and it's late and everything, and I'm like, we need to get up tomorrow to go to Tikal at 3:30 in the morning, because apparently that's the best time to go there, because it's early, there's not much people, and there's like more animals and stuff. So it's like, all right, it's like by then it was 10 p.m. and we had to get up at 3:30. No, it was 9 and 3:30. So I'm like, all right, that gives us 6.5 hours of sleep. But like things got started, everything, and I'm just like, should I take the pill? Like, no, by the time I take the pill, it'd be super late. We won't get enough sleep. So whatever, let's just, take care of her. And even though she prefers when, we're both taken care of, at least one of us will be happy. That's what's going on in my head anyway. It's funny because now that I know, like, for some reason, that first conversation I had a couple of like 3, 4 weeks ago when I was sharing my first experience, I'm like, that's gonna be like super awkward. It really wasn't. For some reason, this seems like a way more awkward one, probably because I'm going into more detail. Anyway, whatever. So I'm focused on her for most of the time, and let's just say she's more than satisfied more than once. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, cool, we're good. But she just won't stop, and she wants to keep going. She's like, okay, take the pill. I'm like, but it's gonna take like a while to take effect. She's like, I don't care. So I'm like, okay, go ahead, take the pill, the full one this time. So I'm like, I don't want to make the same mistake twice. So go back, keep having fun and everything. And at some point, like a few minutes in, I'm like, all right, things are starting to happen, and the pill hasn't had an effect yet. That's unexpected. And without going into too much detail, because I know multiple people close to me are going to watch this and I don't want it to be too awkward, let's just say that I was able to perform without the aid of the pill because it hadn't kicked in yet. And it was actually really amazing. In fact, pretty much the best sex of my life, which is ironic given how 2 nights before was the absolute worst, most embarrassing sexual experience of my entire life with the exact same girl. I'm like, how can it go from here to here? Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. But this is amazing. Let's enjoy it. So, definitely most amazing night ever. And I'm 100% confident she enjoyed it to the same degree that I did. So, I'm like, cool. Awesome way to finish things. Tomorrow we're going to Tikal and we're coming back at 9 p.m. She's leaving. So we might not have to do time to do anything again tomorrow, but this is a really good way to end things. So, end on a high note. Cool. Next morning, wake up super early. I'm exhausted, but we get up, go wait for the shuttle. Obviously, the shuttle is late. Eventually, we get in the shuttle, sleep half of the time there, like, nodding off like, anyway, eventually we get there. It's still raining. It sucks. We go to the restaurant on site, eat breakfast, wait a bit for the rain to clear. And because we were with the group, they're like, hey, if you want to be with the group, you can pay 50 quetzales extra and just join us. If not, just meet us back here at like 11:30 noon and we'll leave that. And we're like, hey, she's already been there. She already knows the places. And we don't really want to be with the group anyway. We want to do our own thing at our own pace. So we go ahead, visit all the different places. Now these ruins are way nicer than Yaksha. A lot like I haven't posted yet because the last week I've spent like 24 hours a day with Susan, so I didn't get a chance to record any videos, which is why this one is so long. I didn't get a chance to post any of the remaining, I think, 24 videos that I filmed back from the zoo from Guatemala City from like a week and a half ago, or all the videos I've filmed so far, or any of the pictures I've taken. So that's probably going to be the plan for the next few days, is going to be slowly uploading all those things. So anyway, really good pictures and videos from that I'm going to post on Instagram and on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok. Anyway, whatever. You can probably find them relatively easily. But really nice pictures, really beautiful ruins and everything. And it's just like a really, really fun day. And we come back. It was around 3:30, I think, when we got back. So we go eat a bit, come back, expecting to take a nap, but neither of us can really fall asleep. Oh yeah, and take a shower because we're like walking in mud all day and we're like filthy. So we take a shower and I'm thinking like, all right, we're just gonna take a nap. She's gonna leave later on and that's gonna be the end of it. But nope, once again, we start fooling around. And once again, because I wasn't expecting this, I didn't have time to take a pill. So I'm like, okay, cool, nothing's gonna happen once again. But yeah, so pretty much in my head, I'm like, how much detail do I go into? Because I needed to go into detail for the last one just because it was like rock bottom and then, I don't know what the opposite of rock bottom is, top of the mountain, whatever. Anyway, but let's just say that I helped her be happy, she helped me be happy, and I thought that would be the end of it, but she was still turned on and wanted to keep going. So we tried, but I'm like, okay, I'm a guy. Most guys need a break to recover, especially given my condition. It's more difficult for me. So we took a little break. And then at some point we get back into it. And she's like, I'm like, should I take the pill? She's like, yep. So I go ahead and take the pill. But once again, no, do I? Yeah, okay, I do. No, okay, I took it before we took the break. Yeah, okay. So a little later, I'm like, all right, cool. I feel like it's starting to have effect, starting to get that headache. So we should be good. And anyway, things start again, and everything's great. She gets everything that she wants. This feels like it's so awkward for people watching. Anyway, that doesn't matter. So, yeah, and the thing is, because I already achieved satisfaction before, it's taking me longer to get there. So at the end of the day, like she's exhausted. She pretty much can't take it anymore. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Just you're good. You're satisfied. Go take a shower, and I'll take care of things myself from here. So anyway, everything ended up being okay. And even though it wasn't as great as the previous day, I'm like, it's still a very good way to end the trip together. So yeah, that was yesterday evening. So brought her to the bus station. She left, came back here, fell asleep because I was exhausted from waking up so early and really not sleeping that much. And now here I am, the morning of. Wow, I'm losing track of the days. Wednesday, yes, Wednesday morning. And I have to check out in a couple hours. Not really sure what the plan is because I've pretty much done everything I wanted to do here. The apartment that I booked in Guatemala City is for the 15th, so I pretty much have a week left. And I'm like, do I stay here and just chill here for a while? Go back to the city and like grab another apartment for a week and just chill there? Go to another place in Guatemala and do something? So I really don't know what the plan is. So for now, I'm thinking just book one night in another hostel, figure out what my move is from there, and just kind of go. Also, Matt, this morning I'm like, all right, I'm kind of bored, a little lonely because I've been with Susan for the past week and now I'm alone. So I'm like, I just randomly started swiping on Tinder and matched with a girl from here. And we're going to see each other tomorrow. So I'm like, oh, I'm at least going to stay till tomorrow. Help me figure things out, meet this girl, and then I'll figure out what my plan is. So at the moment, that's pretty much where I'm at. So this was a very, very, very long video. And I would apologize for that, but I won't, just because I'm sharing what was happening. That is the whole point of these videos. So hopefully, for, you know, even though this is for you, whoever you are, whatever your name is, whenever I meet you, hopefully this wasn't too awkward for you. And because I know that my friends and family will be watching, hopefully it wasn't too awkward for you guys. But if it was, well, you're probably not watching this anymore, so it's not really important. Anyway, that was pretty much the update. So in the future, I'm going to do my best to not wait this long to record a video just because I don't want to make 40-minute videos every single time. And I don't want to spend 3 days uploading a video because the internet down here isn't the best, isn't the quickest, and it usually takes a long time to upload videos, and this one is going to take forever. So that was my last week. Rock bottom, top of the mountain, so many cool experiences. And it was fun. Honestly, I don't know why I said honestly. Anyway, it was really fun. This was my first couple's vacation, if you will, and it was really cool to not be alone. And even though I still do enjoy staying in hostels and getting to meet people and, making new friends and everything, I'm looking forward to staying in one place for a month and just kind of having my own space, being able to do my own things when I want to, and not really having to worry about either spending like a ton of money for a private room or having to like always be around other people. So I'm really looking forward to that. Plus, once I get back to Guatemala City, there's going to be the other girl. By the way, her name is Maggie. So I can finally get married and get to know her. Because at the moment, like, we spent 2 hours together and it was really fun. And we've been chatting a lot since then. I really don't know what's going to happen, but I'm really looking forward to figuring out what will happen, what it will lead to, and setting up the business so I can start generating money to not always go broke and not have that kind of background resentment when I'm with someone and they're not paying. Now, of course, I could have the conversation, but I'm like, nah, whatever, I want to experience this, not have to worry about money or hold back or whatever. Plus, it's about the experience. I'm going to remember the experience for probably my entire life, whereas I'm not going to remember how much I paid for it. So, money really isn't that important. So, anyway, really looking forward to getting back to Guatemala City and having some sort of stability for a while, building up a system that's going to be able to support me for the future. And I just remembered as I was saying that, I got an email a couple days ago from a company that travel company. I'm not quite sure the exact details. I saw an ad pass by on Facebook, I think, at some point, and they were looking to hire people like as tour guides and stuff like that for travel. So basically, getting paid to travel. I'm like, that seems cool. I want to travel. I'm going to be traveling soon. Perfect opportunity. So I applied for that, submitted, did a video submission, I guess, or whatever, where I answer questions, and didn't hear back from them. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I wasn't selected. Cool, whatever. I've already moved on. I'm already traveling. Doesn't matter. A few days ago, I get an email from them saying, oh, you've been accepted into the next round. Please schedule a Zoom interview for within the next few weeks. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe this could happen after all. So just schedule that for when I'm going to be back in Guatemala City the day after, I think. So yeah, it seems like I've passed the stage where I'm just staying in hostels and doing a ton of activities and everything, and I'm getting to the stage where it's like, all right, time to settle down for a bit, set up the business for the conversational English teaching, and set that up, and then have that interview for the job, maybe get that job, see what it's going to lead to. So it's like, even though I'm still traveling and I'm still spending a ton of money, I have prospects to start generating money. So that's really good, and it's not as stressful for me. All right, I think I've covered everything. If not, then whatever, this video is already way, way, way too long. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying with me for so long. And I'll check back in with you later. Hopefully not in a week from now. Hopefully within the next day or so. All right. Bye.